Open up the doors. Open the doors more. Open the doors wider still. Open the doors as far as they will go. Open all that you are. Open up the doors, my friends. I know the metaphor of opening doors is ironic, even painful at this moment, when for everyone's safety's sake, the doors of our homes now mark a threshold that we do not let many people cross. It becomes a metaphor this morning for opening the doors of these virtual places too, opening the virtual doorways or these Zoom windows, perhaps, as our community doorways. It can also be a metaphor for the very personal doors we are opening in our inner life and awareness while we're staying at home. In the annual service we might have had today, everyone would have been invited to bring a flower or a blossoming branch or a twig to create together a big, beautiful bouquet or a set of bouquets, eclectic set of bouquets made up of all our individual contributions. It's an annual ritual begun in a Unitarian church in Prague, Czechoslovakia in 1923 by Norbert Čapek. After seeking political safety in the United States between the two world wars, and after discovering Unitarianism here, Norbert and his wife Maya returned to Bohemia, to what was by then part of Czechoslovakia, and they started a Unitarian church that 20 years later became the largest Unitarian congregation in the world. It had 3,200 members. In the beginning, however, in the early 1920s, it was a small, simple, unadorned church. Norbert created a ritual to bring beauty and at the same time to embody a very foundational awareness in Unitarian Universalism, that every person has beauty and value. Every person has worth and dignity. That every person brings something unique and vital to the community, if we will let them. And that when we all contribute who we are, as different as we are, something extraordinary can be born. Something wonderfully sweet can happen. I'm missing that annual physical ritual with all of you today of creating those bouquets. And it's been wonderful to see your photos of yourself in the midst of your homes and your flowers. I invite and encourage you to be part of the readings and the photos and the clips each week. So please keep watching for the invitations to send in a photograph or to be part of a reading. And if you're willing, please take part. And if the thought of that is daunting or you don't feel like you have the equipment, let us know. Maybe there's a way we can help it happen. We are needing these days to find new ways to bring who we are to this shared community. And it looks like we are going to have some time to get very thoughtful and creative and good at it. The president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, Susan Frederick Gray, wrote us this week offering an update to the association's guidance around in-person services. Based on consultations with public health officials and other experts, the leadership of the UUA continues to recommend that congregations not meet in person. Beyond that, they also recommend that congregations begin planning for a year of virtual operations through next May 2021. And immediately after that statement, Susan writes, "Take a moment to breathe. I know this is significant." So yes, oh my goodness, a whole year. I invite us to take a moment to breathe. A whole year yet, perhaps. As President Frederick Gray points out in her message, approaching the future this way will allow us to be creative with our long-term planning. At the same time, it allows us to be flexible should the conditions change significantly. Oh yes, we could adapt to that. We could adapt to sooner safety possibilities. I know that most, if not all of you, will agree with her that our care of our members and friends and our neighbors, our staff, is a priority during this pandemic time. If we did not realize it before, we are reminded every day in the news that our actions directly impact the health and the well-being of our neighbors. Susan goes on to point out that religious gatherings are considered highly contagious events. The acts of singing together, the familiarity of people across households, the multi-generational community of children, youth, adults, and seniors, the things that make our congregations so special, she writes, also create more risk for spreading the virus. From a different angle, I love the idea that our religious services might be very contagious. May ours be so. And if we're going to open up the doors more, wider still, so far as they go, we'll need to figure out how to open them up in new ways, virtually. One of the gifts of being entirely online already is that geographic distance is no longer a barrier. It's been great to see familiar names and faces of people who used to live here and who have moved away. And it's been wonderful to see new names and faces and to start to make connections with the new folks who've been part of the Sunday services and some of our other gatherings. With the long haul in mind, we are looking for ways to open the doors and to connect meaningfully. So those of you who are new to this community and wondering more about Unitarian Universalism or about this congregation, please connect with us. I look forward to the chance to connect with you, and we will look for ways for that to happen well in the next year. Meanwhile, while we are all looking out our separate doorways for the next year perhaps, we can be looking inside and growing our internal commitment to become together ever more radically welcoming in heart and mind and body, ultimately. The flower ritual that Norbert Chapik created doesn't end with creating that shared bouquet. At the end of the service, he invited everyone to take a different flower or a different branch or twig home with them, symbol of the gifts they had received from each other and from being together. That people left with something new, something different than what they brought to the community. If we understand and take to heart the Unitarian Universalist values that are beneath that ritual to their fullest, we will seek to value the gifts that each person brings, even those whose presence stretches us and maybe even invites us to change. Stephanie Spellers writes in powerful and practical terms of the notion of radical welcome. I was introduced to an adaptation of her work in a course I took recently on trans inclusion from Zur Alex Capitan and Reverend Michael Slack. It was a course in becoming truly welcoming, not just in word, but fully welcoming to transgender and non-binary persons. I'm drawing on their work and some of their language this morning. Today, I simply want to share their progression of welcome, from invitation to inclusion to radical welcome, so that as we are learning to live and to celebrate community in new ways together, we can also be imagining community in new ways together. So briefly, welcome begins with invitation. At the level of invitation, we say that everyone is welcome regardless of fill in the blank. We invite everyone in, come join us, whether or not we're actually prepared for their presence, whether or not we are prepared for their spiritual views, or their oddities, or their political views, their smell, their mental health challenges, their marginalized identities, their difference. At the level of invitation here, at this level, this first level, we offer a general and broad welcome, assuming that our being friendly is enough for someone to feel welcome. We're friendly, they should feel welcome. And we give the actual welcome job to the greeters. At this level of invitation, the underlying message, no matter what we say, is you will be assimilated. You'll be assimilated to the extent that you're willing to be like us, to believe like us, think like us, behave like us. We invite you into our like-minded community. Sound familiar? Invitation is an important starting place in our personal lives and in our community life. Not every community offers it. It's an important place to start. At the next level, beyond invitation, at the level of inclusion, we work a little harder at incorporating those who are different in some way. We are more specific in our welcome. We name lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer persons, or we name that Black Lives Matter. We make surface changes to reduce the barriers to folks. We have all-gender restrooms and appropriate signs to match. We put in ramps for wheelchairs. We put our preferred pronouns on our name tags. We include photographs of people of color in our visual elements in the services. We work at the welcoming, but only up to the point where we might actually have to change our culture, have to change the way we do things around here for new folks to feel truly welcome. Only up to the point where we don't have to give up something that we really like in order to help someone else have the things that are important and necessary to them. Our style of music, perhaps, or our style of services, our kinds of social events, the way we hold meetings, the language we use. Sound familiar? It's an important move to make in our personal lives and in our community life, this movement from invitation to inclusion. I've seen a lot of that in us and in this community. So beyond invitation and inclusion, then, is radical welcome. And radical welcome genuinely embodies the belief that each one of us is better off when all of us can be ourselves and express ourselves fully, when all of us can be who we are and learn from one another. People outside the majority norms aren't merely tolerated, but they're actually centered, integrated, and valued fully for who they are, and in particular for the unique perspectives and the life-changing gifts that they might bring. When offering radical welcome, new out of our ordinary people, especially people typically marginalized in some way, their presence transforms the community. They're not only accepted and invited, but their presence transforms the community. It liberates the community from its assimilating sameness. Radical welcome is about allowing out of our ordinary people to change us, to make our reality sweeter. So a quick caveat, there is a boundary when it comes to behavior that is destructive. Not anything goes. We cannot welcome all behavior. But radical welcome asks us to discern very carefully whether a person's behavior is truly destructive or rather simply uncomfortably but helpfully disruptive. Is the real issue that it's very different from what we're used to or want or know. So while this may all seem rather removed from the stay-at-home realities of this moment, a year staying at home, or however long it turns out to be, is going to ask us to get increasingly clear about what community is. It's helpful to not be together, to have to figure out what community is, to figure out what community can be at its best. My hope is that if we plant the seeds now for thinking about who we are and how, about who we welcome and how, we might be able to open our doors wider still, to grow our vision for what UUCM can be in the wider community. We can look for ways to live toward that vision now, that sweeter vision, even while otherwise staying at home. We can live toward it in all the choices we make about how to connect, about how to gather, how to act when we are gathering online, even from our individual living rooms. There's a really wonderful, simple way this came up in our conversations in the class. It was around the welcome that we offer at the beginning of services. So it's very common, and we have done it here often too. I use it a lot to say at the beginning, we welcome you who. We welcome you who are young. We welcome you who are old. We welcome you if you are wealthy. We welcome you if you are struggling to make ends meet. We welcome you is the operative piece of that. What we talked about in the course is that radical welcome actually invites we language instead of we you language. We are young and old. We are comfortably wealthy, and we are struggling to make ends meet. We are at many places along the spectrum of gender identity. We are frightened. We are content. We are humanist, and we are theist. We are the bearers of white privilege, and we are the targets of harm because of the color of our skin. Not we welcome you, you outsider, but we are us. We, as we are already included. Such a simple turn in language to communicate such a significant difference in approach and perspective. Not we welcome you who, but we are already. In radical welcome, everyone takes responsibility for fostering belonging and for building relationships. And members grow deeper in their faith, in their humanity as a result. Stephanie Speller suggests that radical welcome is not about liberating those who are coming in the doors, not offering safe haven, protection, liberation for them. It's in the end about liberating those of us who are already inside. We heard these words in the reading. I invite you to think of them from the perspective of community as opposed to the individual. Open up the doors. Brace shoulders against the weight of history unmoved, and let your breath precede you inside. Make room for a shaft of sunlight to cross the threshold. Peek through a single slice of possibility and name even the half-hidden truths you see. Open the doors wider still. Pour yourself through the gap. Cleanse whatever scrapes catch your skin, and bind up the wounds that keep you from entering whole. Open the doors as far as they will go. Ground yourself in a firm sense of who you are. Stand as a beacon, welcoming the next seeker, and shine far beyond the lintel and sill. Open all that you are. Broaden your definition of neighbor. Grow into the largest target for grace that you can muster. And pray to become a gateway for even greater love and compassion. Open up the doors, my friends, lest we keep the stranger out. Open up the doors, my friends, and in so doing, let yourself in. So may it be. So may we